No team has ever, in the history of the NFL, built their roster the way that Cincinnati has built theirs for 2025. And I haven't yet decided if that's a compliment. Look, there's no denying that there's star power here, and the Bengals are still one of the most exciting teams to watch in the entire league. That's just a fact. Now, does some of that excitement come at the expense of their own fan base's mental health because every single game is always way closer than it needs to be because this roster is incredibly thin, and so you have the star players at the top of the payroll consistently carrying everybody else because of compounded mistakes in the draft process year after year after year where this team consistently whiffs on picks, which then necessitates spending extra money in free agency to fill in their roster holes, which are still ever present because they're really bad at talent evaluation, which then leads to a roster construction that looks nothing like anything that has ever been done in the history of the sport? Sure, you could say that over the course of an hour, but for now, let's just say they're good television. Look, for those of you that are new here, this is day 10 of the annual Bootleg Summer Series. And in each one of these episodes, we use film, analytics, salary cap breakdowns, and all manner of nitty-gritty football nerddom to answer the 3 questions that make up the central pillar of this series. What was this team's identity before? What is their identity now? And what does a successful 2025 season for this team actually look like? I can't promise that diehard Bengals fans are going to be super jazzed about today's show, but I can promise all of you this. Even if we disagree with you, we will never, ever lie to you. Jay, Autumn, Anthony, roll the intro.
It's Bengals Day on the Bootleg Summer Preview Series, and that means as much as I'd like to avoid it, I got to start things off with a strongly worded statement. What Cincinnati is giving Joe Burrow for protection right now looks a lot like what Seattle gave Geno last year, and given that it's a multi-year trend at this point, it's starting to look a little bit like what Ryan Grigson did to Andrew Luck in Indianapolis. The front office and the GM are on the hook for it, and it is robbing Bengals fans of potentially even greater performances from one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Today we'll talk about whether there's any hope of that trend turning around anytime soon. Brett, my good man, after I drop that depressing truth bomb, you got any silver linings for the folks in Cincinnati?
Today's going to be interesting, EJ.
So no.
I mean, Bengals fans don't like me very much because I've been very critical of the organization, which, first of all, unfair. You guys are critical of the organization too, but because I'm not a Bengals fan, I don't get away with it. But we've had similar opinions, or rather, I've had similar opinions to Bengals fans about how this team is run and how they've drafted, or rather, drafted poorly, how they've built the roster, decisions they've made, things the coaching staff has done. And because of that, I think a lot of Bengals fans see me as a quote-unquote Bengals hater. And that's fair. Well, actually, no, it's not fair. I don't hate the Bengals. But I understand why they're defensive of their team. But I'm hoping today can be an olive branch because, yes, I will be critical about them. It's hard for me to talk about the Bengals without being critical of the dumb things that they do. But at the same time, I want to offer an olive branch, which is the next, give me 3 to 4 minutes, and you can clip this, and you can send it out, because I need to wax poetic about one of truly my favorite players in the league, and that's Joe Burrow. I can't be a Bengals hater and love Joe Burrow at the same time, so pick one, Bengals fans. But I want to talk about what this man has done to elevate a roster and elevate an organization that has been in severe need of elevation. And if you're looking at what Joe Burrow's superpower is, it's not just accuracy, and it's not just pre and post snap smarts, and it's not just everything that he does physically. It's the fact that I truly don't think I've ever seen a quarterback better under pressure in my lifetime. And I've grown up watching a lot of Hall of Famers, whether it's Brady, Manning, Brees, Roethlisberger, like all these guys. Nobody has been this good under pressure like Joe Burrow before. And really the hallmark of being good under pressure is not having a drop off from when you're not under pressure. And when you look around at the NFL and you see all of the quarterbacks that are ahead of Burrow in passer rating last season when not under pressure, he was 10th in the NFL in terms of passer rating when not under pressure. You see a lot of really good players. You see Josh Allen, you see Lamar, you see Hurts, you see Baker, you see Herbert, you see Jaden. And all these quarterbacks had higher passer ratings when everything was going totally fine. And yet, if you're looking at their passer ratings, when they're under pressure, you see massive drop-offs. Allen went from 109.3 when not pressured to 71.2 when he was pressured, a drop of 38. Lamar went from 127.5 to 92.7, which is also insane, by the way, but still down 34.8. Hurts went from 115.5 to 67, down 48.5 in passer rating. Baker went from 108.2 to 79.4. Herbert went from 106.9 to 75.3. Jaden went from 105.6 to 74.2. You're sensing a pattern, right? Drop of 30 to 40 points. Joe Burrow, when not under pressure last year, 104.9. Very good. Joe Burrow, when under pressure last year, dropped 9.8 points. He still had a 95.1 passer rating under pressure. That was best in the league. But what makes it most impressive is that Joe Burrow, when he is under siege, is the same as Joe Burrow when he's not under siege. That is his superpower. That is why no matter how bad the rest of the team is, or most of the rest of the team is, I'm never comfortable playing against Cincinnati because that dude's a fucking assassin. And the fact that the Bengals have had poor pass protection and he has still been that good is really a testament to how special he is. And I shudder to think of what this team would be if they did not have him back there.
Now we just have to get them the message that just because he's good at it, you don't have to make him do it. Like, just because he doesn't fall apart under pressure doesn't mean you have to put him under pressure a lot just to show that off. Like, give the man a break. He has certainly earned it over the last 3 to 4 seasons. And he's probably going to have to exhibit that trait again this year. So we'll figure it out, but he is a tremendous player. He is also one of my favorite players in the entire league to watch because he will extend plays routinely, sometimes under horrendous circumstances, and always seems to find an outlet.
And it's like if you don't get him the first time around, then you're just not going to get him. Like that's what's annoying about playing against Joe Burrow is you kind of only get one chance to get him on the ground, and if you don't, then he's going to get the ball out anyway, and then it's probably going to go to Jamar, and you're probably going to get a 30-yard gain against you, and okay, get good, kid. Like that's what's annoying about playing against Cincy.
And the funny thing is, it's rinse, lather, repeat. He's done this since college. It's something we called out in his pre-draft profile before Cincy even drafted him was, if you miss, like, yeah, you can get him. He is not impossible to put on the ground, that's for sure. He's taken his fair share of sacks. But if you miss, oh, woe is you. Like, the world is coming to get you. You are not going to escape. He is going to, he always does this. He just locks in, right? It's like, okay, if you're going to take your shot, you better kill me, because if you don't, I am absolutely going to stick the knife in your heart. And he's just continued that on to the NFL. We've seen guys who were like that in college who couldn't continue it when they got to the league. Burrow, just like the pressured and unpressured passer rating, hasn't skipped a beat in the NFL.
Now, the other key narrative, well, multiple other key narratives. The main other key narrative to track today is the defensive issues this team has had. And we'll get into it. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this defense, as well as how they've built this defense and the new man they brought in to call this defense. But I almost feel like the narrative of last season was one of the most special quarterbacking seasons we've ever seen that nobody's ever going to remember because the defense was that bad.
Yeah, the two sides did not support each other throughout this series. We've talked about teams that are very complementary, whose offense helps the defense, and some teams where that doesn't occur. And Cincinnati is the poster child for, at least last season, the defense absolutely not helping out the offense and putting them in positions where Joe Burrow had to be a superhero or else. And as you said, I shudder to think what would happen to this team if they didn't have a superhero behind center. So All that to say, 2024 for the Bengals, 9-8, third in the division. Home record of 3-5, road record 6-3, which is exemplary. That's very good performance on the road. And in their last 5 games, they did rip off a 5-0 stretch to finish up the year, making this year look a lot better than it did right before the close of the season. Their power score is a very similar roller coaster ride. So power score is made up of their ability to run the ball, pass the ball, stop the run, stop the pass, points scored, and points allowed. We use EPA to figure out those passing and rushing stats. We just give them their league rank. Their passing offense, not surprisingly with Joe Burrow at the helm, was 6th. Their rushing offense, 18th, which you can win with in the NFL. You do not need a top 10 rushing attack to win in the modern NFL. The pass defense, 18th, also middle of the road. The rush defense, and we'll talk about it, the defensive line struggles were well chronicled. They were 28th. Points scored to go with that very good offense, they actually matched their passing offense number. They were 6th in the NFL. Points allowed kind of matched that rushing defense number. They were 25th. So if you add up those 6 numbers, divide by 6, it turns out the Bengals came in right down the middle with the 16th best power score in the NFL, but it was a tale of two cities between the offense pulling the team along and the defense dragging the team down.
So I have one more note about the offense before we get into the defense. As far as like offensive identity, or really negative offensive identity, this team had some of the worst guard play in all of football last year, and that was a big reason for whatever issues they did have on offense, which again, it's hard to argue with their EPA and their points scored and everything like that. Like, they were still a great offense overall, but one of the things that I think held them back from being even better than they were was the combination of Alex Kappa and Cordell Volson as their starting guard duo. They were terrible. Like, absolutely terrible. It was a big reason why they drafted Dylan Fairchild in this draft. They could not go another year with that kind of guard play. It's actually a miracle they scored as many points as they did with that kind of guard play. If you're looking overall at their offensive line, they were 20th as far as pressure rate allowed on true dropbacks, but the only reason they were 20th was because their 2 guards, as far as a guard group, was bottom 4 in the league. They were 4th worst in the NFL. If you take out their guards and you just look at their tackle and you just look at their center and you combine those 3 guys, they were top 10 in the NFL in terms of pass protection efficiency. So if the guard position didn't exist, this actually would be a pretty good offensive line. It's just, you play with 5 instead of 3, and 2 of those 5 were objectively terrible. So when Bengals fans complain about their offensive line, just know they're really more complaining about their guards, and ideally, it will be much better this year with new bodies in there. Now, as far as defense, this is the thing that most people point to for the reason why they missed the playoffs and the reason why they have underperformed of late. A lot of the numbers that I'm about to rattle off don't necessarily make sense together, so you're going to have to indulge me while I try to piece all this together for you, because most of the numbers that I read off are going to be pretty darn good, and then you're going to look down, you're going to see 28th in EPA against the run, and you're going to be like, how the hell is that even possible? And also, by the way, if you want even more numbers than what I list off here, if you want every single schematic number that you can think of as it relates to the Cincinnati Bengals, we do have those available right now in a companion infographic. So if you want to see what all their run concepts were, if you want to see how effective they were in the trenches, if you want to see passing maps, cap allocations, like everything, that is in the companion infographic for all of our patrons. If you are not a patron already, you can find that at the QR code on the screen or at the link in the description or in the pinned comment. If you're a patron, you get access to all this data and then some. And we do it for every single team. But for all the data that I list off here, walk with me while I try to make this make sense for you. So, again, 28th in rushing defense as far as EPA per play allowed. And yet, they were average in yards before contact per attempt allowed. They were 15th best. They were average in yards after contact per attempt allowed. They were 16th. They were average in overall yards per attempt allowed at 4.4. And they were below average in terms of run play percentage faced at 38.3. So they didn't even face that many runs. And the runs that they got against them, as far as yardage gained, fairly average. So how is their EPA per play that low against the run? And this is a key macro, not philosophy, key like macro stat, I guess you could say, that we've been talking about throughout this entire series, which is the value of a negative play for a defense. And more specifically, the value of never letting the offense stay on schedule. If you can get a tackle for loss or a tackle for no gain on first down, it completely changes the complexion of the drive. If you can do it on second down, even better, because all of a sudden they only have one more play to get 7, 8, 9 yards, even if they were in 2nd and 2, 2nd and 4. If you can then go from 2nd and 4 to 3rd and 8, massively changes the complexion of the drive. And EPA is derived not just from the yards you get, but how important the yards you get are. Are you creating negative plays on defense? Are you having a successful play that gains 4 yards on offense that sets up an easier third down? And then are you converting that third down? So it's not about getting 400 yards in a game. It's more about getting the right 400 yards or even the right 200 yards that are consistently moving the chains and getting you into scoring position. So EPA is very concentrated on valuable yards, not empty calories. And on defense, you get punished heavily on EPA if you never make the offense go backwards. And this Bengals defense didn't really make the offense go backwards. Yes, they allowed an average yards per carry, but that 4.4, it wasn't like, oh, they're allowing a 9-yard carry and then you get a 5-yard tackle for loss. Like, it wasn't like that. It was every single run is getting 4.4. And they had only 71 tackles for loss or no gain the entire year. For reference, Cleveland led the league in that category at 111. So if you have an offense that is consistently staying on schedule against you and getting 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6, and they're never running it on first down and ending up in 2nd and 13, again, that changes the complexion of the drive. It means that they can play action you to death. It means that the screen game is different. It means that their protections are different. And I really want to emphasize the value of not just explosive plays on offense, but explosive plays on defense. Like, a tackle for loss is an explosive play. And if your defense can never get them, and you're always in 2nd and medium, you're always in 3rd and short, it's honestly a miracle that Trey Hendrickson was as productive as he was as a pass rusher when this defense never gave him honest-to-God pass rushing situations. Like, at least not never, but like rarely compared to other top pass rushers in the league. And so, you want to look at why their EPA was so bad. It was that they didn't get explosive plays defensively. And I think, to tie it all together, when you look at the Demetrius Knight pick, and even at the time, I was like, I don't know, kind of early. Like, he's not super great in coverage. Like, okay, what is Demetrius Knight really good at? Running forward and getting TFLs. Like, that dude can blitz his ass off. And this team blitzed a ton on early downs, like the 7th highest blitz percentage against the run, and yet didn't get a whole lot of tackles for loss. Demetrius Knight is there to blitz on early downs and get TFLs and get you into 2nd and 8, get you into 3rd and 8, so that Trey Hendrickson, assuming he comes back, has real pass rushing opportunities, or Shamar, or whoever. Like, when I looked up this stat, it instantly made the Demetrius Knight pick make sense to me, because they looked at their defense and like, we're not getting TFLs. That dude gets TFLs. Right? It's like Moneyball. Like, what does he do? Gets on base. What does he do? Gives us 2nd and 9. Like, that is what he is there for. And I instantly loved the pick a lot more as soon as I understood what their real problem was.
Yeah, their linebacker play has been good, but not in that way. Both of their guys that have started at linebacker, Pratt was a converted safety. Again, when you're moving forward a level in the defense, the angles and things come at you much more quickly. He is great sideline to sideline. He understands the pass game in a way that very few linebackers in the NFL do. But he is not necessarily that downhill run-stuffing blitzer. And, as a result, they let him move on. They draft Demetrius Knight, and they're looking to, again, build that capability into their defense so that they hopefully stay at the level they were at last year, which is midline all the way across, right? You laid out lots of stats that were 15th, 16th, right in the middle of the league. You can absolutely live with that, but you have to have some explosive plays. You have to generate them on offense, and you have to generate them on defense. We'll talk about the defensive line and their inability to generate them from a pass rush perspective, but it is equally important for this team, if they're going to stay out of that cellar for run defense and move up to mid-pack along with the rest of their stats, that they can get some running backs on the ground before they get the yards that are expected.
I also want to note, by the way, we are recording this on June 28th. I have no idea if by the time this goes live, Hendrickson's going to be signed, Shamar's going to be signed. I have no idea. There's a lot of outstanding storylines when it comes to this team on defense. So we'll see if it's training camp and these are still issues. You'll hear from me, Bengals fans, but I assume you're going to be just as mad as I am at that point. As far as the people who are at least half responsible for getting us into this mess with these contract negotiations, let's talk about the Bengals' power structure. I have several bones to pick with them, but before I go in, I'll at least let you read off their names, EJ, so that we know who to direct our ire to.
Yeah, and I think your point is well taken that there is some division of duties here. The folks we're going to list off are not necessarily responsible for the parts we're hearing about in the news, especially with Shamar Stewart. The GM is Duke Tobin. He is in charge of the players this team drafts, and we can hold him responsible for the Bengals drafts, both good and bad, and there have been plenty of swings and misses on his watch. Again, 2 years ago, the Bengals front office was the toast of the league. Everybody thought, wow, we can be lean and mean. We can have a staff of like 6 people and achieve results that get us to the Super Bowl. We should do that. Yeah, that didn't last long. It was kind of like the pivot to video moment in sports broadcasting. Everybody thought it was a good idea, but hasn't really stood the test of time. But also, Duke Tobin is not in charge of contract negotiations. He is not in charge of the part that is hanging up Shamar Stewart. He thought he was a good player and he picked him. We can take issue with him for that, and we probably will. But it's not really correct to direct your ire to Duke Tobin about the fact that they're not signing Shamar Stewart, nor re-signing Trey Hendrickson. That's not his job. So
it's a Katie Blackburn special right there.
Both of them are Katie Blackburn specials. So she's not on this list. So Duke Tobin, if you want to take issue with his draft picks, we certainly have in the past. Go ahead. If you want to throw rotten tomatoes at him for the contract situation, please don't. That's not his ballgame. Head coach Zach Taylor. Zach is one of the more frustrating head coaches in the NFL for me, because there are times I look up and I think, man, he's putting together a product that's really good and can win. And there are times I look up and go, is he though? And he's been there long enough that I feel like I should be solidly on one side of the fence or the other at this point. And I'm still not. I'm still up on top of the fence, sort of leaning one way and leaning the other and going, I don't know. He could be talking myself into it. But then there's plenty of evidence on the other side for, yeah, but you might do better if you moved on from him. I don't know. I don't have a solid read on Zach Taylor. After multiple years in the head spot, he's produced good results, but I think he is a coach that leaves me at least wanting a little bit more. He is not taking all the meat off the bone in terms of the talent he has.
I'll give you the ultimate Zach Taylor stat. This is another one of the very niche numbers that we have in the infographic. And I asked for this to be in the infographic specifically because of the Bengals. They are the reason this number is even on there. So this is first or third quarter offensive timeout wastage. Because if you're going to use a timeout, you generally don't want it to be in the first half of a half. Okay, if we're using timeouts on offense late in the second quarter, great. If we're using timeouts on offense late in the fourth quarter, great. First and third quarter, offensive timeout usage, not ideal. Usually that means something went wrong. The Bengals had 15 first and or third quarter timeouts used on offense, which is far, far above second. Second place was 7, if I recall correctly. And I remember I put this stat out for Bengals fans, and some Bengals fans were like, yeah, but part of that was Joe Burrow taking a timeout when they're in the red zone and looking for a good look, and then they would come back and score. It's you're not wrong. I looked it up. I actually did my research on this. 3 of them off the top of my head, were from Joe trying to get them out of a bad look. The other 12 was Zach Taylor not getting the fucking play call in on time and consistently putting Joe in a tough position to then have to use the timeout. So I think it's another one of these stats that I look at where I'm like, God, if they didn't have Joe Burrow, can you imagine how bad they would be? Like, can you imagine how bad this team would be if they did not have Joe Burrow? Like, he is single-handedly keeping Zach Taylor employed, in my opinion. Like, what does he bring to the table that is not either propped up or amplified by who his quarterback is? Like, does he make Joe better, or does Joe make him employed? For me, it's the second one.
I think it's more the second one. And while you were talking, this just came to me, and I think it's going to land with you in a very terrible way. Zach Taylor is the Jay Cutler of NFL head coaches.
I don't know. At least Jay was kind of funny. At least Jay was entertaining.
I'm not talking about
what does Zach Taylor
but
do to make the Bengals better? Like, honestly, what does he do to make the Bengals better?
It was the classic argument with Cutler, though, that, he's being held back by the folks around him. And, he's not like, literally, Jay Cutler, late into his career, 10 years into his career, had the same number of wins and losses. He was literally 500 straight down the middle. And I kind of feel like that's Zach Taylor, just 500 straight down the middle. Not elevating things, but not making them a whole lot worse either. And again, that's a tough position to have your head coach in, because you do want a leader that is going to elevate you. I look at the change in teams like Detroit when Dan Campbell got there, right? And there was a lot of disbelief in Dan Campbell's approach and way. It's paid off, right? Detroit is a completely different team since Dan Campbell arrived. And I don't know, at some point it feels like maybe you have to make a move to see if you can get that other 20 or 30% you're leaving on the table, having a head coach who is, by many numbers, right down the middle. Anyways, coordinators. Dan Pitcher is the offensive coordinator. New defensive coordinator. This has been a Lou Anarumo defense for a very long time. It is now an Al Golden defense, and we will see how he employs some of the assets we talked about that have come either through free agency or the draft. Special teams coordinator is Darren Simmons. On offense, other notable coaches. Scott Peters is the offensive line coach. In my mind, he has to be on a hot seat. Like, you could talk about tackles being good and the center being good. This is not a flag football team. They don't get to have 3 linemen out there. There's got to be 5. They've got to play as a unit. It's only as strong as the weakest link, and the weakest link on the Bengals has been pretty darn weak for years in a row. Scott Peters has got to turn that around. James Casey I put on here because, hey, he's your guy. James Casey, the tight ends coach. Troy Walters is the wide receivers coach, and I don't only put him on here, A, because he's, an NFL playing alum, but also when you look at guys like Andro Yoshevich, develop the way he did last year, I look at, okay, who's the position coach? Who's helping him get there? Because there was a lot of potential with Yoshevich, and he realized it last year. He became one of the better third wide receivers in the NFL. A lot of that can fall towards Troy Walters. On defense and special teams, the senior defensive assistant is Sean Desai on, I can't remember what stop in the last 5 years. It feels like 5. It could be his 4th stop in the last 5 years, but has a skill set that still keeps him employed in the NFL. He understands a Vic Fangio defense. And again, is a sounding board, has been in a lot of different rooms, a lot of different systems, a lot of different buildings, and can bring, hopefully, some of that experience to, I'm not going to say a first time or new defensive coordinator in Al Golden, but new to the Bengals. And Jerry Montgomery is the defensive line and defensive run game coordinator. He was with Green Bay from 15 to 23. So 2015 to 2023, if you recognize the name, we would have been talking about him as well. And I don't envy that man. He doesn't know what ingredients he's going to have to cook this particular dinner right now. And that's got to be giving him some sleepless nights.
I do have some more positivity to say before we get to my even longer rant that we have coming down the pipe, and Bengals fans know why. Al Golden was a tremendous hire. I really, really do believe that was one of the best things they've done this offseason. I think he is a really, really great defensive coach. I think he maximizes what you get out of his DBs. He's always been a great developer of DBs. I think his pressure schemes are aggressive and I don't want to say exotic because there's not really such thing as like an exotic pressure anymore. Like everybody's seen everything in the NFL, but it's more so his timing of when he calls certain pressures and how he will set up, a pressure in the third quarter by, kind of dangling some car keys in front of you in the first quarter and the second quarter, and then he hits you with that left hook in the third quarter. Like he is a kind of defensive coordinator that calls a complete game. Like he's never just winging it and like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what works. Like he always has a plan with every single call that he will then either go back to later in the game or he'll show it later in the game and then call something else. Like everything just feels woven together. And when you combine that with the fact that he just develops good DBs, which you can't be a good pressure team without having good DBs. I really do love the hire. And again, I'm a Lou Anarumo fan. It just kind of felt like it was time. And boy, they got lucky plucking out Golden there. He's a great coach.
My favorite thing about Golden is the number of titles he's held throughout his coaching career. So started off in high school football as an offensive coordinator, moved to the college level as a grad assistant. Then he was linebackers coach, defensive coordinator. He was the head coach at Temple. He was the head coach at Miami. Then he was the tight ends coach for the Lions. Then he was a linebackers coach again for the Lions. Then for the Bengals previously. Then he moved on to Notre Dame and he was the defensive coordinator and linebackers coach, defensive coordinator. But in there, you've got head coach, you've got tight end, you've got, offensive coordinator, again, from a couple levels below, but he's really been sort of all over as a coach and certainly settled in the last, since 2020, 2018, he's been on the defensive side of the ball, but has just been all over in terms of football coaching. Again, all levels, high school, college, pros. He was the MAC Coach of the Year in 2009. Like, this is a very experienced coach that is going to bring a lot to trying to, I don't want to say fix this defense, but bring them back to prominence.
All right, let's talk about it. Bengals fans have been waiting for this the entire episode because I have gotten into several discussions, spirited debates with Bengals
animated
fans.
discussions,
animated discussions, all about how this team has approached free agency, not just this year, but the last couple of years, right? And the T. Higgins saga. First things first, I'll admit I was wrong. I did not think that they were going to extend T. I knew that they were going to extend Jamar. Obviously, you're going to extend Jamar Chase. I didn't think that they would extend both of them. And I 100% will say I was dead wrong that I thought they weren't going to do that. However, in my defense, the reason why I didn't think that they were going to do it is because it has never been done before. As in, no team in the history of the NFL has ever been built this way from a financial perspective. So my bad for not expecting the Bengals of all teams to spend their money in a way that nobody had ever done before. And allow me to elaborate, please. I understand you got your tomatoes loaded, you got your eggs locked and loaded. Give me 3 minutes to explain how batshit insane this is before you lob them in my direction. So, Bengals starting wide receiver duo this year, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, is going to be a combined cap hit by themselves of 17%. If you're looking at the entire wide receiver cap hit for the whole room, they are sitting at, hold on, let me reference our handy-dandy infographic here, 19.7%. What the hell, EJ? That is easily first in the league. And if you're looking at a starting duo by themselves being 17%, you might think that, okay, but there's been a lot of great Hall of Fame duos with multi-thousand-yard receivers. Like, surely somebody has spent that much money on one duo before. No, at least not in the last 25 years. And I enlisted the help of Nathan to find and pull a lot of this data for me because I knew that there was no way anybody's even been close to this. And I was correct. So if we go back to, say, the start of 2000, right? Think of all the great wide receiver duos you can ever think of. We went year by year, looking at their cap hits. What's their highest combined cap hit between the two of them? Here's a few of the highlights, right? Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, early 2000s with the Rams. Their highest combined cap hit was 14.3%. Keep in mind, right now, Jamar and T are at 17%, and that's the cheapest they're ever going to be together. It's going to climb up to over 20% by the time we get to 2028. And that's including projected raises in the cap. 20% by 2028. So Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt, 14.3%. Harrison, Wayne, and Stokely in Indianapolis, all combined at 15.8% in 2004. The highest Harrison and Wayne together ever got was 16.9%. That was in Marvin Sr.'s last year. They were chasing a ring. He was done after that season. That was the highest they ever let it get, and it's still not as high as the lowest Jamar and T will ever be together on these mutual deals. Larry Fitzgerald, Anquan Bolden, at their peak Larry Fitz and Anquan Bolden, 2008, 13%. Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, at their peak, 2015, 13.8%. Jordy and Randall Cobb, 14.5%. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, 15.9%. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, 14.4%. Tyreek and Waddle, here's the one everybody points to. Oh, well, Miami did it. If you're looking at the last few years, it was 10.8% combined in their cap hit in their most productive year, which was 2 seasons ago, and then just over 11% this year. They have to cut Tyreek like fairly soon to get out of this because they're about to be 20% in 2026. It's just Miami structured the deal in a way that there's no way that they're not going to cut him. So they're never actually going to have to pay 20%. They're paying like 10 to 11%. Again, cheapest Jamar and T will be locked in, guaranteed this year, 17%. Miami is not comparable to them. So I look at how this team has built, rather how they've spent. And I think that there is no way that they're going to sign T because nobody's ever done this before. And then they signed T. So yes, I was wrong, 100%. But maybe the Bengals are wrong too for doing this in the first place because they also have the 4th highest cap hit at quarterback. They have the 1st highest cap hit at wide receiver. Combined, they're at over $100 million for 3 guys in their cap hits this year. It seems short-sighted. It seems, I don't want to say dumb. I don't know, kind of dumb, honestly. Like it seems like a bad move to me. Like I think you could have traded T, not just this year. Like you could have traded T before and gotten a 1st-round pick. We know that there was 1st-round offers on the table, but because Joe said, no, I want T. Higgins, I want to go on a run. Like, of course he does. He's Joe Burrow. He wants all of his toys. Tell him no. No, Joe. You can have just one super weapon at receiver. We need to get pass rushers. We need to get fucking guards. We need to build a team. We missed the playoffs, Joe. No. And I understand, like, yeah, they switched agents, and David Mulugeta said, well, you're not getting Jamar Chase without signing T. Higgins. Tell him to fuck off. Like, no, don't do this. It's not smart team building. It's really, and I know that because nobody's ever done it before. All these Super Bowl teams, like I listed 2008 Cardinals and the Colts who went 12-4. Like none of these teams that were so successful ever spent like this. And maybe that should be the lesson. And maybe the one team that even had a deal that approached this is the Dolphins. And you want to be the Dolphins as your model? The team that had to let their offensive line and defensive line talent walk because they couldn't afford them because they paid Tyreek and Waddle? What are we doing? Yes, I was wrong. Maybe the Bengals are more wrong. Have we considered that? Like, it's bad team building. And I'm going to get ahead of Cincy fans right now because I know they're going to say this. Well, who else are we going to spend it on? We're bad at drafting. That's another problem. That's also a problem. You can't draft and you're spending terribly. It all is a problem. It's God, this team pisses me off.
I can tell. And you're not wrong. If anything, it makes it more of a problem because let's just say if the Bengals are the trendsetters here, they're the pathfinders. I know. Go with me here for just a second. Let's just say that is a decent approach. If you are going to take that approach and back it up with a straight face, you are putting incredible pressure on your scouting staff to say, we need to fill the rest of the roster with cheap, valuable talent. And they're not great at that. So if you take this approach and your front office or your GMing staff is not tremendous at really picking gems out of the rubbish pile in day 3 all the time, like, you need to do that. So if anything, it makes it a bigger weakness, right? If you're like, well, we don't have anybody to spend it on because we're bad at drafting, then don't put all your eggs in one basket at wide receiver. That's not good, because you don't have another way to fill the team. Because what's the only other way to fill the team? Free agency. What do you have to do in free agency if you haven't drafted well? You have to overpay people to get them to come. Or you've got to scrape the bottom of the barrel on day 3 and say, sorry, Joe, that's the best we could find. We only had $12 left.
Right now, we're looking at 35% of the cap being cap hits this year being taken up by 3 guys, right? So if one of those 3 guys gets hurt, on average, we're losing 11.5% or something like that of the money that we're spending this year is going to be on the trainer's table. If we lose either Jamar or, God forbid, we lose Joe. Well, if you lose Joe, everything's over. It's fine. But, well, that's not fine, but it's over at that point if Joe goes down again.
It's a fact.
But it's like, okay, we're going to spend this much money on a receiver that is hurt a lot anyway? Like, it's unconscionable. So I apologize for being wrong about saying that we're going to trade him. I just didn't think that they were ever going to do this, especially the Bengals. Since when did the Bengals spend like this? Like, if you're going to spend the money, spend it on Trey Hendrickson, which is a whole different saga. I understand. There's a lot going on with that. I just... God, EJ.
You're going... You're bouncing from one can of worms to the other. And
that's the thing. That's why this team is so frustrating, right? because it's like Joe Burrow is like one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life, and Jamar Chase is one of the best receivers I've ever seen in my life, and Trey Hendrickson is a stone cold killer. And like when everything is right, they go to the Super Bowl, and they just can't stop themselves from getting in their own way.
This is a team that cannot get out of its own way. And they continue to do it. And unfortunately, hey, we're not done yet. If you're not pissed off by all those controversies, we've got another one for you when we get to the draft. They just, one foot in front of the other. The best teams have a very complementary approach. Offense supports the defense. Free agency supports the draft. Front office, in the best case scenario, picks the right veterans to extend, lets the guys who are going to be really high priced and maybe age out walk. They get compensatory picks for that. Like, all of these things work together. The Bengals, historically, year over year, have found a way to sort of kick themselves in the dick over and over and over again. And it's really frustrating because of all the reasons you listed off. Like, Jamar's a great player. You know, it's very difficult to watch all of these guys, including Hendrickson. Extremely difficult for Hendrickson because he has been absolutely the good soldier. He has been supportive of the organization. He has played his ass off without a lot of support along the defensive line. He has been a stalwart. And it comes time for him to get his, and they basically just balk. And he finally goes, look, I've been really good. And I'm not just being good to get paid. I have been good in every way. I have been good off the field. I have been tremendous on the field. I have towed the line for this team, given my all, been out there, been incredibly reliable and wildly productive. One of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And it comes time for me to get paid, and you're like, I don't know. Like, you don't know what. And I applaud him taking the time to say, all right, I'm going to stick the irons to you a little bit here because I've done everything right on my part. This is wholly on you.
Yeah, like I said, good old-fashioned Katie Blackburn special over there. I might as well list off all the other free agency stuff. Again, if you want the entire list of free agency losses, free agency gains, third-party signings, we have those on the infographic too, over on the Patreon. But as far as notable losses, gains, and signings, Mike Hilton, no longer on the team. Von Bell, no longer on the team. Both of them played 60 to 65% of the snaps. Akeem Davis-Gaither is now a Cardinal. Alex Kappa, addition by subtraction, he is now a Raider. I hope for their sake he is not starting. Jermaine Pratt is also now a Raider. And Sheldon Rankins is a Houston Texan at $5.2 million. As far as retentions, we have the aforementioned T. Higgins at nearly $29 million a year. Jamar at just over $40 million a year. Jamar, 100% worth every single penny. BJ Hill, $11 million. Geno Stone, $4.9 million. Mike Gesicki, $8.5 million. Cody Ford, $3 million. Joseph Osai, $6.5 million. And Cordell Volson, for some reason, $2.6 million back in the building. So the team was not afraid to spend money overall. It is just interesting that everybody got paid except for Trey Hendrickson. But, Bengals fans still seem confident that something's going to get done. I'm not going to predict whether it will or won't. I just wish it already happened. It just feels like if something was going to get done, it would have happened already. I don't know. Maybe it's going to happen right at the beginning of camp. I have no idea. But it's just frustrating, right? It's one of your best players. And if you don't have that many guys to pay, maybe you should pay them. As far as third-party additions, Samaje Perine they brought in for 1.8 from the Chiefs, and Lucas Patrick, they brought him in from the Saints at 2.1 million. Obviously spending most of their money in-house this year because they had many, many high-dollar players to address. So that brings us to the draft. And this team, perhaps more than anybody else, considering the retirements of Sam Hubbard and what was going on with Trey, and then just the general lack of other pass rushers, period, everybody knew the Bengals, arguably more than any other team in the league, had to take a pass rusher in the first round this year. And maybe another in the second round. And you could do another on day 3. Like, they needed pass rushers over and over and over again. And so they took Shamar Stewart, who doesn't do that very well. EJ?
I know. Let me save you from this if I can. Speaking of doing it like no one else does, seems to be a theme for the episode. The Bengals is the only team I can find this year where every one of these picks was their own natural pick. No trades. Nor did they inherit picks that someone else had traded before them. So all of these are straight up, didn't trade down, just stuck and picked. Now, we'll talk about who they picked and why. In round 1, at number 17, they picked Shamar Stewart, defensive end, Texas A&M, because they need pass rush. Interesting choice, because one of the most polarizing players in the draft, we talked about in pre-draft in that context as, this guy's an enigma, tell me what we don't know. There were not as many backers as detractors, I think. I certainly knew more people who were leery of picking Shamar Stewart, especially in the first round. I think the talent, the physical talent, certainly might have started to even out in the round 2 conversation. Middle of round 2, you want to take a wildly talented physical specimen and see if you can develop him? Sure. At number 17, basically exactly midway through the first round, this is a risk. There's no other way to put that. His production does not match his physical profile. He is not developed as a football player. He has a long way to go. You can call that a project. You can call that underdeveloped. You can call that raw. You can call that whatever you want, but that is the fact when you watch him on tape. Yes, occasionally there are gobsmacking flashes of holy cow. They don't come very often, and he's certainly not consistent with them. We'll talk about the financial approach to Shamar Stewart when we get done with all this. But from just a tape on-field perspective, how does he fit a need they have in their defense? This is a risk. This is a big swing, and you and I both think the likelihood of it paying off is low, as do many others. We are not alone in that perspective. Who knows? We don't know. We often say we like players, and they don't pan out, and vice versa. I hope Shamar Stewart pans out because, man, he can do some things physically. I also know from now well over a decade of scouting experience, it doesn't happen all that often. The light has to come on for a guy like this, and it's probably not going to happen in the first year either. And that is a rough place to be because it's not like you don't have to play Shamar Stewart this year as the Bengals. They put themselves in this position. Maybe they didn't expect Hubbard to retire, but honestly, that really didn't matter that much. Hubbard wasn't contributing that much anymore. There's a lot of pressure on Shamar Stewart to be on the field, and right now, he's not even in the building, and that is a terrible start for this player in particular because, man, he needs every mental rep, every moment he can have with the playbook, every possible iota of knowledge he could pick off a veteran on the practice field would help this guy, and he's not getting any of it right now, and that's rough.
And the counter argument is like Trayvon Walker in Jacksonville, right? Like freak of nature athlete, went first overall, has turned into a legitimately good player. Like he really has been productive. Hasn't been Aiden Hutchinson, so people kind of hold that against him. But it doesn't mean that in a vacuum he's not a good player. Like he has developed. The issue is it took him until his third year to get to what he is now. And I don't think the Bengals have that much time for a similar kind of athlete in Shamar Stewart, who's also coming into the league with similar concerns about rawness and not rushing with a plan and not really having a bag. The Bengals don't have until 2027 for him to be good. Like they need him to be good right now. And so if the goal was let's take a pass rusher who can contribute to us right now in 2025, there was at least 5 other guys on the board that I probably would have gone with instead of Shamar. Doesn't mean that Shamar won't eventually turn into a Trayvon Walker type of player. But to me, it's like, okay, but what's the goal? If the goal is we're in this window with Joe and T and Jamar, and we just need a little bit of pass rush to support them, it's just an odd choice to me. Like he's a good run defender. Seems like a good dude, honestly. Like I don't think he's going to be an issue in the locker room. It's just from a fit perspective for what the team needs right now. It's just weird, right?
Yeah, it felt like a round peg trying to be fit into a square hole, and that is not great with pick number 17 overall. In round 2, pick number 49, Demetrius Knight. We talked about him, the linebacker out of South Carolina. I personally had a very high grade on Demetrius Knight. I thought his two-way game was better than a lot of people gave him credit for, but yes, against the run, an absolute game wrecker, missile, tackle for loss machine, takes very good angles, hits like a truck. Huge fan of Demetrius Knight's game. And again, this team needs exactly what he does, so this felt like square peg and square hole. This was a great choice. Round 3, number 81, Dylan Fairchild, the guard from Georgia. This team needs guard help like crazy. I think Dylan Fairchild is a very solid choice. I thought he was a good player. I thought he was the 3rd best interior player on Georgia, but that's not a backhanded compliment. The other two, Tate Ratledge and their center, were very, very good players for different reasons. Tate Ratledge, because he's an all-around player. We'll talk about him when we get to Detroit next week. Their center was immensely athletically gifted and I think farther along than people thought. Fairchild was steady. And steady in the SEC. I don't think his ceiling's as high, but boy, the Bengals could use steady at guard like I can use air. So again, I'm not going to take any issue with that choice. We move to day 3, round 4, pick 119. It's Barrett Carter, the linebacker from Clemson. Barrett Carter was a guy I did a lot of study on last year because I thought he was going to come out then. And when I went back to him this year, not a lot had changed, and that's not necessarily a great thing. He didn't go downhill, but I didn't see a ton of improvement from the study I did last year. Is that okay in round 4? Yes. Can you also play him at running back? Also, yes. He took some reps at running back for Clemson, so,
sure, why
a two-way player. Sure. We talk about JJP.
Who needs Travis Hunter?
Yeah.
Or JJ Pegues.
We talk about Pegues being a fullback. We got to talk about Barrett Carter taking some carries. So round 5, number 153, Jalen Rivers, a tackle for Miami. I low-key love this pick. I really like Jalen Rivers. To get him in round 5 after pick 150, I think is a great value, and I think is going to pay dividends for the Bengals down the line. Round 6, number 193, Taj Brooks, the running back from Texas Tech. Incredibly talented player, one of our favorites from Shrine Bowl. Really tough, good in pass protection, solid in the passing game, but not explosive there. But as a runner, extremely talented, not typically a player you're going to be getting around the 200 mark. It's more a factor of there were so many talented backs in this class that Taj was still available in round 6. I kind of love the inverse value of this class. If you're looking at like getting Taj in the 6th, getting Jalen Rivers in the 5th, Barrett Carter, I think 4th is where it about levels out. Dylan Fairchild, again, I think that's appropriate value in the 3rd. Demetrius Knight, I really liked, and Shamar Stewart was just the wild, like, I don't know, maybe don't burn your 1st round pick in the middle of the 1st round. Like, not the greatest approach.
I feel like their most impactful pick is going to be Fairchild just because like they just need guards. They do. But as far as my favorite pick, it's Taj. Like he's a really, really good running back. Such an underrated running back too. Great feet. He's a big body. Played at like 230. Can pass protect like all hell. His body type and his skill set reminded me a lot of Michael Turner. He's not as fast as Michael Turner, but like as far as like short area quickness, dropping the hips, and just being like a sentient block of granite. Taj Brooks reminds me a lot of Michael Turner in short areas. Some people would comp him to like sound weird for a 230-pound player, a slim down Mike Tolbert or like a Michael Bush type, but I think he's got a little bit more wiggle than Michael Bush. But that kind of like number 2 running back, or in Michael Turner's case, he was a number 1, but like solid number 2 running back that's way better than he gets given credit for. Never going to get more than like 12 carries in a game, but you're going to love him when he's on the field because he's never going to let you down, and he can pass protect. And he's a great dude. So I love that pick. And Jalen Rivers I thought was really solid value too. I thought I could have gone earlier than that. So, I'm with you. Demetrius Knight for the role, perfect fit. Dylan Fairchild, needed him. Barrett Carter, take it or leave it. Jalen Rivers, great value. Taj Brooks, wonderful pick. And then Shamar, we'll see, I guess. Like, it's not the worst draft we're going to talk about this summer by any means. Do I think that they maybe left a little bit of meat on the bone? Yeah, but it's all right. I think they're fine, probably.
You want the ultimate deep cut circle take for EJ Snyder draft?
Sure.
So Taj means that they let Travion Williams go.
Oh, God. We're still on this. Come on, dude.
He's a Patriot now.
Year 5 of this. Come on.
That's right. Turned into a very valuable special teamer. Played a lot of good downs for the Bengals. No, that's
We've had a whole nother Travion enter college in Ohio, go through all of college, and then enter the NFL, and join the Patriots.
Yep.
It's Travion on Travion.
It's the Travion and Travion show for sure.
Never going to let it go.
Nope.
Never. Notable UDFAs. So Seth McLaughlin, talk about a dart throw, but a high upside dart throw. Center out of Ohio State. Probably would have been a day 2 pick if he didn't get injured. But, if we're just saying like, if he comes back at 80% of what he was, that's a starter for us. I love that pickup. And then Howard Cross, the third, the other Notre Dame defensive prospect in this class. Could have argued for him to go late day 3, but I assume, Al Golden called him up and said, please come play for me. I liked you at Notre Dame. I have a spot for you. You know the system, the verbiage. Like I think it's obviously a good fit for Al Golden. And then there's not really a whole lot of notables beyond that. Like maybe if you're a Peyton Thorne truther. But other than that, probably not going to be many guys that I think make the roster of this UDFA class. Maybe they'll be practice squad.
Yeah, McLaughlin, if he's healthy, is the grab from this UDFA class, especially considering the team he's going to. If he comes back Might take him a full year to regain strength in that leg. More likely a practice squatter this year, or maybe possibly even on IR. They put him on IR before the year starts. He gets a full redshirt year to get healthy. Very talented player. He could come back and be a starter for them eventually. Not this year, but again, if you're not paying any draft capital, those are the kind of moves that a team like this that is gambling on a, let's just say, experimental team building strategy needs. Like, you need talent from every possible avenue. And a guy like Seth McLaughlin in your UDFA class would go a long way towards that if he gets healthy again.
So that brings us back to our core pillar, right? What was the identity before? What do we think their identity is now? What is the goal for the season? Talked extensively about what their identity was, what their identity is. So now we got to talk about what the goal is. And I think Bengals fans would be heavily divided on this question, right? Because some of them are just like, hey, man, just make the playoffs. We got Joe. If you're in, like, we'll see what happens from there. A lot of Bengals fans think, okay, but we should be winning this division if we're paying all this money for all these receivers and quarterback. Like, they need to deliver the division for us to justify this unprecedented team-building method. And then you have, I don't want to call them delusional, let's say enthusiastic Bengals fans that are like, oh no, we're right back to being Super Bowl contender. It's us in Kansas City. I don't know if I go that far. For me, if I'm Cincinnati, my number one goal for 2025 is to have a more than 500 record in September. This is a team that is famously really bad in September. Consistently, I think like almost every single year, if not every single year, for 4 straight years, starts the year 0-2. Last year, they started the year 0-3, including a loss to the very, very, very bad New England Patriots at home in week 1. I'll give them a pass for the Kansas City thing. Controversial game to say the least. And then the Commanders, I think, were just better than people thought they were. But you cannot start another season 0-2 or 0-3 because that is consistently come back to bite them into the end of the year. The reason why they missed the playoffs, even after going on that 5-0 run to end the season, is because they lost to New England in week 1. I know it doesn't seem like it. Everybody says it's a long season. Doesn't mean that all those games don't count. So for me, the goal is start 2-0 and at least go 2-2 in September. Hell, 3-1 would be amazing. Because at that point, by the time you get to October, that's usually when like Burrow really starts clicking in and it becomes like God mode. If you can get to October already above 500, I have no worries about this team making the playoffs. But if you do another 0-2 start, another 0-3 start, and they're on the back foot again for the 5th straight year, at that point I'm starting to think, is it too much to overcome in a loaded AFC to come back from that again?
If I'm Cincinnati, I need the defense to start hot. I need them to play at least complimentary football and occasionally hand something nice back to the offense and say, here, guys, go play well with this. They can't have a slow start overall as a team. And the defense, I know it's a lot of pressure for Al Golden because he doesn't even know who all he's going to be playing with yet. But if you squint at this depth chart, you can see it. The problem is you have to squint. And how many times does a team in the NFL hit all green lights? How often do all the rookies play well? How often does a new defensive coordinator mesh with the defense almost immediately, and the offense stays healthy and plays at the level it did last year? There are a lot of ifs. You can see it if you squint, but it's not very often that lines up for an NFL team. If it does for the Bengals, it's going to be a lot of fun football. If it doesn't, they might be stuck in the middle again.
Which is unfortunate because I really do think that we're witnessing like generational quarterback play in Cincinnati, and I just don't want that to get wasted.
Me neither.
Ideally, they get their shit together at some point. But all right, well, that'll do it for today's show. Reminder, we have the rest of the AFC North coming. We did the Browns yesterday. We got the Steelers tomorrow. We got the Ravens on Thursday. We do our division wrap-up show for all of our Patreons on Patreon. Patrons on Patreon. There we go. And that comes out on Friday. We pick the division winner, pick all of our award winners, pick bold predictions for the AFC North. So that's Friday. Make sure to go check out the infographic if you're a patron. We have a lot more coming this week and for 5 more weeks consecutively after the AFC North. So yeah, same time tomorrow. See you then.